Greetings, King of Upper Egypt.
Greetings, King of Lower Egypt.
Thank you for agreeing to meet me here at my Sphinx. I wanted to show you something.
Yes, my men told me that you wanted me to see something. What is it?
Yes, look at the Sphinx. What do you see?
I see your powerful god, Sphinx, standing there, and approximately 50 of your men holding baskets doing absolutely nothing.
Wrong. They're getting ready to fish. They're going to bring fish down to the Nile.
I'm afraid you have it wrong. You take fish from the Nile to land. You don't take fish from land to the Nile.
That's not the way we do things. Men, open the doors to the Sphinx. Now what do you see?
I see fish flowing out of the ground, dozens, maybe hundreds. How is this possible? God has given you everything. He's given you the wealth of the Delta, and now your Sphinx gives you fish. All you have to do is pick them up. I don't understand this.
God didn't give us this. We created it.
How is this possible? What did you do to create this?
Agree to combine with me, and I will tell you.
Why would you want me? You have everything. Now you have everything you could possibly want. What would you want from me?
This is but a fraction of the amount we can receive. I only can use this for 4 months of every year. I want to take advantage of this year-round.
For decades, we have fought with you, we have pleaded with you, negotiated to combine. And now that you have this, you're saying if I combine with you, I can share in this wealth?
Yes, if you agree to combine with me, I will tell you how, and we will all both share in the wealth.
I agree. Hello, world. Thanks for watching video 3. If you haven't watched videos 1 and 2, I highly recommend you do so. It'll help you understand our entire theory. I hope the skit wasn't too corny. Brian and I couldn't agree on which part the rock was going to play.
Now this video is going to answer a lot of questions, so we're going to try and go slow and explain everything clearly. But if you're still fuzzy on anything, please don't hesitate to post a comment and we'll try to get back to you. Or if we have enough questions about a certain topic, we'll be happy to make another video explaining something further. But keep this in mind when you're watching the video. The two major things we're going to try and answer in this video are the Sphinx's peculiar shape and how the Egyptians, without technology, were able to level off the foundation and base of the pyramid perfectly.
These two things, and everything else we're describing for that matter, are actually connected. Most people marvel at the pyramid without realizing it is only one piece of a much larger system. But that's the equivalent of looking at one piece of a jigsaw puzzle and trying to figure out what the entire picture is going to be. What we are trying to do is allow you to step back and look at the entire system and show you how it all intertwines. Now at this point, you are probably wondering why we are speculating tunnels hundreds of miles long are under Egypt and if they actually exist. So before we continue, there are a few things we need to go over. 2 quotes from Herodotus and a few facts regarding the pyramid.
There is an ancient underground tunnel system under Egypt. This system was described by Herodotus, and he actually referred to part of it as a labyrinth, more marvelous than the pyramid itself. But for many years, Egyptologists and archaeologists thought he was making things up and discredited his writings. However, recently they found parts of it under the Giza Plateau and parts of it in the Fayum region where Lake Morris used to be. Now this gives him much more credibility than people realize, and personally it baffles us why people don't take him more seriously now. He actually described what the pyramid was for, but just like the labyrinth, it doesn't make any sense, so people immediately discredit him. This tunnel system found today is hundreds of feet deep and actually has 3 layers underground. The bottom one still has water in it today. Unfortunately, they still haven't excavated it to find its source. But Herodotus wrote something very interesting that gives credibility to our speculation of this tunnel connecting to Aswan. If you weren't already convinced from our story in King Narmar in video 2, you're about to be now. I'm going to put the entire quote on the screen, so if you want to read it, feel free to pause the video and take as much time as you need. But we interpret this quote to say, there is a tunnel in Aswan that is the source of the water in Egypt. In it, he mentions that that water would flow out of the tunnel and travel both south and north. You'll see in a little bit in this video, and more so in our next few videos, how they were able to allow water to flow out of this tunnel and travel both south and north. Now the area that we speculate this tunnel was placed is in this area of the Nile that's roughly 50 miles downriver of modern-day Lake Nasser, and that's because That area of the Nile in ancient times used to be a lake, but that area of the Nile is today described as having some of the best fishing in the world for several species of fish.
The next quote backs up the basis for our theory entirely. Again, feel free to pause the video if you want and read it for yourself. But he mentions that the water of the lake passes through a man-made channel. 6 months, the water passes flowing into the lake, supplying a small amount of fish, and because of that, a small amount of taxes to the royal treasury. And 6 months, the water flowed through this channel out of the lake, bringing a larger supply of fish and more taxes. We found this interesting, that he describes the same channel for water traveling both directions, and it took a while for us to interpret this. But continue watching our series and you will understand why in a few videos. The last thing we need to go over is about something we are about to show. We are about to connect these pipelines to the pyramid. You are probably thinking, if there was a connection between them, somebody would have figured it out by now. So here's what exists today. There are 3 tunnels branching off the subchamber under the Great Pyramid. One of them is the descending passageway that extends up through the inside of the pyramid to the swivel door. The other 2 are thought to be dead ends. One is called the bottomless pit. It extends straight down 12 feet. The other one is a shaft coming off vertically that is described as traveling toward the Nile, roughly 50 feet. We have evidence that both of these shafts are connected to the tunnel system spanning between Aswan, the Great Pyramid, and Lake Morris, and are going to reveal this in our next videos. So watch and you'll see we're going to reveal our smoking gun.
Sorry that took so long, but everything we just covered is extremely relevant to our theory, and we needed to make sure you fully grasped it before we continued on with our series. Now, if you remember in our last video, we left off here. They had finished digging a tunnel from Aswan all the way to the Giza Plateau, ending it right here. Now, at this point, what they would have wanted to do is continue digging the tunnel up. This would be in hopes of finding the elevation that water would balance out with Aswan. But once they daylighted it on the plateau, they realized they still needed to gain more height. And the only way to do this is to create a structure. So what they would have done is carved into the Giza Plateau and created a moat on its perimeter.
When they did this, the floor of the moat didn't need to be perfectly level, as long as no area sat above the water line when water filled the moat. What they would have done is brought down quality blocks from Aswan to be able to support the structure they were about to build on top of them. Then they would custom cut each stone and place them in the moat, creating a level surface.
If you're unclear with what we're describing, in our next video, we're going to have a skit demonstrating this concept a lot more clearly. Now, at this point, what they would have done is begun building the pyramid itself. They would have carved out identical casing stones and placed them on their perimeter, placed them in the moat, creating the perimeter of their pyramid. When they set the blocks down, it was important that they set them down touching each other to create a watertight seal between them. We understand they didn't have ways to seal the connections for a perfectly watertight seal, but water still would have been able to rise up the inside of these stones. And as water did, it would eventually begin flowing over the tops of the stones. When this happened, any imperfections on each stone would reveal itself, because water would only flow over the lowest point of the perimeter. They could then shave down the high points of each individual stone until water flowed over the entire perimeter, and they knew they had a level base to continue building on top of. They could have used this process for additional courses as well. But when they reached this point on the pyramid, roughly 20 feet high, where the ascending and descending passageways meet, they would have begun phase 2.
They would have dug a connection between the subchamber and the original pipeline under the Sphinx. All that is left of this tunnel today is a 50-foot tunnel we spoke about earlier. But also, interestingly enough, if you look at the diagram of the tunnels under the Sphinx, there is a tunnel that is described as traveling toward the pyramid. We believe these are 2 ends of the same shaft. Their goal was to force feed Lake Morris to raise the elevation through the original channel using the pressure of the higher elevation of Aswan. But before doing this, there was one more thing they needed to do. They had to block off the open holes in both the pyramid and the Sphinx. When water began flowing through the system, what would have happened for the first time in the history of the world is they would have unknowingly created an air compression chamber in the upper portion of the Sphinx. As the water flowed through the system, it would have rose up, making the air in a smaller and smaller area, increasing its pressure until finally something had to give. And what would have given is the narrow areas in the neck of the Sphinx. It probably would have broke it off.
Now, when this happened, they had to recarve a new head on top of the existing body. And this was because there was already holes at the base of the Sphinx, one at the tail and one in the middle by the arm. So they couldn't recarve the body itself to make it proportional. This explains why the Sphinx you see today has such a peculiar shape. It has a very tiny head and a massive body. And it also explains why many archaeologists speculate that in ancient times, the Sphinx was renovated. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you stay tuned for our next video where we continue building the pyramid and finally reveal its true purpose.
Thank you.